Shabbat Shalom, everybody. Welcome to all of you joining us on Facebook or YouTube. We are about to showcase Jal, so you can unmute yourself, Jal, and lead us into Shabbat services tonight. Thank you, Jal. All right, I think we're going to pick it up a little bit with Celia. We're starting where we always start, at the top of page 24 in your prayer book. A new song, one we have never done before. So here's the world premiere of Bet Alepph's version of Lechu Neranena. Go forth, singing songs.
Lechu
Wonderful. I can't wait to have that and the whole band together. That should be fun. We should have a lot of dancing around in the sanctuary. That happens back to the sanctuary for our first Shabbat, August 6th. So start ironing your clothes so that you can, show up with your finest on that night after almost a year and a half. Actually, it will be a year and a half by the time we come back together. For now, we enter into Shabbat, no matter where we are, however we come together, virtually or in person. Shabbat still happens. Shabbat still is here. And Shabbat is still inviting us to step into a different kind of perspective. Perspective on our life, perspective on the world, a different kind of openness. An invitation not to see our circumstances or the world as adversarial, as needing to defend ourselves from it, but in fact to embrace. It's a different state of consciousness, that which for 24 hours sees the universe, sees the world around us as sacred, as holy. And we do that by sharing of our heart from our heart of our abundance, knowing that whatever we own, we really don't own. We're just borrowers for a short amount of time, however long we are walking this earth. We're just borrowing whatever it is that we surround ourselves with, what we call our possessions. It's a reminder that in fact all of that around us is energy, and this energy needs to be shared. It doesn't need to be hoarded. It doesn't need to be saved under a mattress or whatever. It's in fact has potentiality to better the world, to heal the world. And so we are invited to open our heart and in fact to give. And the way for the last Shabbat, we've been the last 3 months dedicated our tzedakah to this organization that we are a part of. Actually, it was a little bit selfish this last 3 months, but this is the last time we have that opportunity to in fact make these energy that money is be beneficial, serve a holistic and sacred purpose. So for this last Shabbat, we are still supporting green buildings now, and I have said that every Shabbat, but in case you're just joining us for the first time in the last 3 months, it's an organization that is made of members of our community, members of Seattle First Baptist Church, in which we have our offices and our spaces, and other faith organizations to transform, create, and manifest decarbonization of buildings, especially in the neighborhood of Beacon Hill, a project that is actually led and pursued by multiracial community leaders that we are supporting as allies to their work. So please support for one more Shabbat this important work that helps us in our anti-racism work, as well as our ecological, saving our world, saving our planet work. They're all put together in one beautiful project. Our executive director, Karen, is going now to put that in our chat room for those of you on Zoom, and for those of you who are watching us on Facebook, or on Facebook, it will be in the comments as well. Please click and make whatever donation you can make to support this great project. So we create sacred space. We kind of recycle the abundance of our life to support the expansion of consciousness and the blossoming of a better future through tzedakah. And then we light our candle. We light our candles to remind ourselves that we are stepping into a different kind of energy, a different kind of fire. Fire in Jewish tradition, especially in Kabbalah, is connected to the soul. So as we kindle the Shabbat candles, we rekindle our higher soul, a soul that transcends just the physical, the body, mind, and in fact allows us to reach beyond the confines of the ego narrowness, and just see, again, shifting our perspective, shifting our relationship with reality, to see it's no longer from the little eyes of the little eye, but from the big eye of the divine consciousness. And that's what we kindle, really. That's all that we kindle every Shabbat as we light our candles. And we also kindle, I'm going to ask you on the other side of our music kindling time, which by the way will be our traditional Shalom Aleichem on page 14, if you're wondering where it might be. I'm going to ask you also to look inside yourself and see what it is you are kindling your Shabbat candles for tonight. What it is that you seek to tap into as you reach to your higher self, for that higher self to be a channel in your life and in your world. What do you need? What do you need that higher self of yours to impact you? What do you need it to bless in your life, in yourself? And with that, we're going to turn to page 14 and back to Celia to lead us into the music while we kindle our Shabbat candles.
Shalom Aleichem, Malachei Hasharet, Malachei Elyon, Melech Malachei Hamlachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Noechem Shalom, Malachei Hashalom, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Baruchuni l'shalom, Malachei Hashalom, Malachei Elyon. Melech Malachei Hamlachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Tzedchem l'shalom, Malachei Hashalom, Malachei Elyon. Melech Malachei Hamlachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu.
On this Shabbat, members of our community have emailed us in the office and have let us know what energies they want to share as they light their candles. John Danker is lighting a candle in honor of his mother, Aileen Mary Danker, on her 21st yahrzeit. Pesha Klein is lighting a candle tonight for her mother, Anne Klein, on her 2nd yahrzeit. Now Celia and her husband Brandon are lighting candles tonight in celebration of the successful negotiation and purchase of a new house. Mazel Tov. They are very excited to have found a house that will work for their unique living situation, as Brandon's mother will be moving in from the East Coast, where it's really too hot anyways. And they look forward to having a warm and welcoming space that comes with actually a beautiful view of Mount Rainier. So Mazel Tov to you and Brandon. Jackie Young. Jackie Young is lighting a candle in celebration of her becoming a new member of Bet Aleph just a few days ago, I think. And we're excited to have you join us. Where are you? Maybe I'm going to spotlight you. I don't know if I can. Here, I can find you. Do you want to say hi?
Hi, this is Jackie. I have my video off, but I can say hi. I'm gonna try.
All right. Well, welcome. It's good to have you as one of our newest members here.
Thank you.
Linda Moldauer is lighting a candle tonight in honor and memory of her brother, Richard Gold, on the 4th anniversary of his passing. And Barry and Zach Thuneman are lighting candles for prayers and good energy as they now list their house next week in hope for a quick sale and ease of finding a perfect new home. So a lot of Bet Aleph, a lot of homes, sacred homes, being sold and then gotten. It's good because there's just more mezuzot to put on the doorposts for me, and dedicate each new space to the divine, to the holy. Believe it or not, the candle blessing is on page 1 of your prayer book. And I invite you to connect with whatever intentions you have manifested for yourself as you were kindling your candles, to have those intentions present for you now as we bless the light of Shabbat. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kiddushanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu להדליק נר של שבת. Amen. And we continue immediately with our time for worship on page 5 in your prayer book. We meet once again the Baruch Hu, the call to blessing. And we meet words of blessing when we call into the presence of the moment, words of blessing. If we're going to bless now, if we're truly going to step into this moment for blessing, then we need to know deeply that in order for us to bless now, then we need to acknowledge that all that has come before, and I really mean all that has come before, the good, the bad, and the ugly in our life, in our world, or just today, has had to happen so that we can find each other and together bless now. That is how we truly bless. When we take in and don't leave everything and don't leave out anything. And that's a challenge. That is a challenge for all of us. Because we humanly want to leave out all the parts that we feel or think are not deserving of blessing. But we couldn't be who we are. We could not have become who we are. We could not have come to this moment without all of it. So bring all of who you are, all of who you have been, all of the moments of your journey to blessing this together. Baruchu et Adonai HaMevorach. Bless the Eternal, the one who is blessing. Baruch Adonai HaMevorach le'olam va'ed. Blessed is the Eternal, the one who is blessing eternally. And at the top of page 6, we call out the words of oneness, the words of the Shema. Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. Listen, Israel, the Eternal manifests as all that is. The Eternal is one. Baruch Shem Kevod Malchuto Le'olam Va'ed. Blessed is the name. The splendor of its presence shines eternally.
Shema Yisrael Adonai Eloheinu Adonai Echad. Shema Yisrael Adonai Eloheinu
And tonight we're going to not say the Hebrew of the Ve'ahavta. We're going to turn to page 16, at the bottom of page 16, and we're going to share the Ve'ahavta through the song written by Debbie Friedman, And Thou Shalt Love.
And thou shalt love Adonai thy God with all thy heart, with all thy soul, and with all thy might. And all these words which I command thee on this day shall be in my heart, shall be in my heart. And thou shalt teach them diligently unto thy children, and thou shalt speak of them when thou sittest in thy house, when thou walkest by the way, and when thou liest down, and when thou risest up, and when thou risest up. And thou shalt bind them for a sign upon thy hand, and they shall be for frontlets between thine eyes. And thou shalt write them on the doorposts of thy house, and upon thy gates, and upon thy gates, that ye shall remember and do all of my commandments, and be holy unto your God, unto your God, unto your God.
We are on page 7, and we are about to share in another song part of the Shema as well, the Shema and its blessings. Hashkivenu in the middle of page 7. I just want for a moment to read the translation before going into the song. Help us, eternal our God, to lie down in peace and to awaken again to renewed life. Spread over us the shelter of your peace. Let us realize the vision of your wholeness, that we may experience the salvation that is your name. Shelter us from all that we fear. Help us see your way, even through times of darkness. Guard our coming and our going. Grant us life and peace, now and always. Blessed are you, Eternal One. who shelters all of us within your being. Maybe that was a little teaser for the High Holidays. Some of you may have recognized the melody that we use for the High Holidays in this case. So I wanted to share a few words connected to the Torah portion today, and I think I want to record just this portion of the service, just in case I say something interesting and I might want to, look at it again later. So please bear with me. I'm just going to do that quickly. There you go. So, as we open the Torah this week for Parashat Chukat, 38 years have passed since God's decree of our 40-year wandering after, if you remember, the debacle of the 12 spies, which happened, in fact, just 2 Torah portions ago. In just these 2 Torah portions, the generation of Israelites who had known the slavery of Egypt and refused to enter the land has now died. And a new generation has arisen whose only memory of Egypt's captivity is the tales that their parents left behind. In Torah, the time is now for conquest. The time is now for circumventing or defeating the armies that still surround our promised land. But before engaging in battle, Moses sends emissaries to ask for safe passage through the lands of the different powers that are standing between the Hebrews and their final destination. And the Torah recounts the plea that these messengers are making to the king of Edom, descendant of Esau, Jacob's twin brother. And it's interesting the way it is formulated. It is as if these emissaries are reenacting a dialogue between Jacob and Esau, obviously hundreds of years later. And they say to the representative, the king of Edom, "Thus says your brother Israel, you know the hardships that have befallen us, that our ancestors went down to Egypt, that we dwelt in Egypt for a long time, and that the Egyptians dealt harshly with us and our ancestors." Now, interestingly enough, some rabbis translate the sentence, the Hebrew, "Vayare'u lanu," which is here rendered as "dealt harshly with us." They translate it actually differently. They translate it as "made us seem harsh and bad." That's a different way to understand the Hebrew. Not they dealt harshly with us, but they made us seem harsh and evil. And the commentary based on that different translation is fascinating because the rabbis say the Egyptian justified their cruel treatment of us by proclaiming that we were evil and therefore we were deserving of persecution. Now, after the events of the past few weeks and the devastating wave of anti-Semitism we just witnessed coming from the woke community on the political progressive left, and the many attacks on Jews in American streets, at cafes, at restaurants across the nation that in fact came in its wake, this commentary stopped me dead in my tracks. I mean, listen to it again. To justify their cruel treatment of us, they proclaimed that we were evil and therefore deserving of persecution. How did that happen here in the US? How did that happen? And something that came to mind for me was, maybe apropos of what we lived through in the past year and a half, cross-species transmission. Cross-species transmission is when a virus that infected one species suddenly jumps the barrier that separated it from a different species altogether. And I connect to that because for me, this visceral, monochromatic hostility toward Israel, and I use the word monochromatic here on purpose because of the false reductionist argument that, in the background says that all Israelis are white, all Israelis are somehow, as the claim is, white Europeans, descendants of white colonizers, right? In the image of white America. White Israelis that are beating up on a minority of color in the guise of the Palestinians. Here also, as far as I can tell, in the image of white America's sinful history. And all of that said or understood background in this day and age obviously pushes on the many very raw buttons of white guilt and white fragility. And this visceral monochromatic hostility jumped from Israeli Jews to American Jews. And they proclaimed that we were evil, as the Torah tells us. They proclaim that we were evil, as the rabbis commented on their translation of the verse. Evil as the way they see all Jews without a shred of nuance. All of us guilty by association and therefore, as the commentary told us, deserving of persecution. Therefore, deserving of being beat up and attacked here in the streets of America. Somehow, Israeli Jews came to equal American Jews. Jews here or there suddenly are understood to hold the same beliefs, to be guilty of the same accusations, especially if they try to, Jews-plain the conflict or, God forbid, dare to defend Israel. And suddenly all Jews are painted as Zionist, racist oppressors. Or like my son was called online by his classmate, Jewish Nazi. I believe that there is great danger to all of us in this cross-species transmission of the anti-Semitic racist virus on the progressive left, just as much as in its rise on the right, which is already now unabashedly infecting members of Congress, as we have witnessed this past few weeks. And I'm looking at this, and as a student of Jewish history for many, many years, I look at the events happening here in America, and I think to myself that history is repeating itself right before our eyes and right now. And I think to myself that right now is not the time to say, like the German Jews did just about 100 years ago, that no, it could never happen here in America. It could. And in fact, it is. From the left and from the right. And the issue at the core of this is that democracy is faltering. The problem is that we are losing the political center in the tsunami of polarization that is in part fed by unregulated social media platforms. And any one of us who have studied Jewish history know that Jews never, ever fared well historically whenever and wherever that has happened. But what concerns me the most is what I'm seeing on the Jewish progressive left and the risk of our internalizing these anti-Semitic messages disguised as pro-Hamas, anti-Israel propaganda. Because of our history of being an alienated and persecuted minority, we rightfully see our future bound up with the future of other minorities. And therefore, we always seek to learn, to understand, to empathize with the history of all marginalized groups. But we often neglect our own. For example, we might know more about the history of African American people and its abject 400 years oppression than we might know about the history of Zionism and the modern state of Israel. Do we know, for example, of the different waves of Jews coming back to the Promised Land over the centuries? Do we know when and how the Zionist movement started and what it was in response to? Can we tell when the conflict with the local Arab population of Palestine started and why? Do we know that Jews being from around the world, Latin and South America, Africa, the Middle East, the Far East, Jews as a nation are themselves a people of color. And that Israel, especially, is a multi-ethnic, multicolored nation. Do we know that the Jewish community here in America is also diverse, is also made of Jews of color? Do we even remember that we, just as the Arabs, are the indigenous people of the land of Palestine, Israel? Or maybe we've come to believe that we've always been white Americans. The problem is that when such violent anti-Semitic rhetoric explodes on social media, on TV, on our streets, or in the alleys of power, we are more susceptible to believe its propagandistic message if we ourselves are not grounded in our own history, if we haven't learned the history of our own people. We don't know what to say when the anti-Semite accuses us, for example, of making the Palestinian people pay for the atrocities of the Holocaust, asking why Palestinians should lose their land to these white European Jewish refugees because of Hitler. As if Israel was a compensation prize given to white Jews to alleviate white European guilt from the Holocaust at the expense of the victimized, colonized Palestinians. This argument is not just sick and twisted. It is a million miles away from reality and from history. But when we don't know our own history, we are more susceptible to absorb this horrendous claim as true, especially if we want to stay included in the group of the woke people. In this case, it is easier to see Israel from their hateful perspective if we want to be counted as an ally to their cause. And if they tell us, as I have heard it spoken, that the white oppression of minorities of color here in America is exactly the same as the white Israeli oppression of Arab minorities of color there, because obviously the lie is that all Israelis are white, we have therefore no grounding to counter this false equivalency, this racist slander. Especially when they magnanimously position themselves as anti-racist and can see their own anti-Semitic racist biases. In Torah, it is not so much that the Egyptians perceived us as evil and therefore justify their oppression, their enslavement, and their killing of us. It is also that in time, after hearing accusations of our evilness over and over again, we too started to see ourselves as they did. It was like being in an abusive relationship and questioning our own experience, our own self. And so we begin to say to ourselves, maybe they're right. Maybe we have all these flaws. Maybe I'm not worthy of them. And it is this self-talk that convinces us, as the rabbinic commentaries told us, that we are harsh and bad, deserving of all the evil that happens to us, and certainly not deserving of humane treatment. All these years, our inner Pharaoh made us seem harsh and bad to ourselves as a way to keep us enslaved, stuck in this self-defeating, reinforced inner story. And so we have come to believe in the myth of our oppressors, of our accusers. And it has felt to me that we Jews may be already in such an abusive relationship with the progressive left. And though we cannot abandon the struggle to stand as allies to any oppressed minority, since, like I said earlier, our destiny is bound up in theirs, we must also absolutely be advocates for ourselves, to call out and fight anti-Semitism wherever we find it, even with those next to us whom we stand with in the demonstrations, and to not abandon or distance ourselves from Israel, warts and all. And just like we cannot fully engage in interfaith work without knowing our own religion first, So can we not fully engage in anti-racist work without knowing our own history, our own oppression as a minority, and especially in this case, the history of Zionism and Israel? And as the song we're about to hear says, may the words of our mouth and the meditation of our hearts continue to be a conduit for love, for peace and reconciliation, for the end of othering in whatever shape that takes, especially when that other is yet again the Jew. Ken Yehi Ratzon. Amen. We are on page 11 in your prayer book, and the song is, as you have guessed, Yehiyu L'Ratzon. I'd like to invite you into a few moments of meditation. To gently close your eyes and to find your breath and your center. The song that we just heard invited us to become conduits for a higher energy, a higher presence, through our words, our meditations, through our hearts. So I'd like to invite you for the next few moments to kind of step aside. Instead of finding yourself in the driver's seat of this vehicle that is your life. To pull over for a moment and to move to the passenger seat. And let the divine presence guide you for the next step on your journey. To be in a place of not knowing. To relinquish control, or more precisely, the illusion of control. To, for just a few minutes, find yourself no longer in charge of anything. Like, feel into what that would feel like if you, for once, for just a few minutes, were not in charge of anything. That there were no decisions you had to make. Because you wouldn't even know what would necessarily come next. To be in this space of receiving. To be in this space of hearing. To suddenly become available to whatever the universe yearns to reveal to you, to speak through you, to manifest through you. Can you, for just a few more minutes, step back and just rest? This is Shabbat after all. And say to yourself, I'm not in charge. I'm not in control of this. Only from that place of being surrendered to whatever the flow of life is wanting us to engage in without control. Only when we are able to do that can we finally see what our deepest soul is yearning for us to express, to be a conduit for. A great Jewish teacher once said in the Garden of Gethsemane, "Not my will, thy will be done." In Hebrew, he probably said, "Ken yehi ratzon," thy will, not my will, be done. So can we let ourselves be guided by the river of life, taking us wherever it yearns to take us? Can we deeply let go? Can we let go so much of control, of trying to manipulate our reality every moment of every day, always fighting with reality? Can we step into Shabbat consciousness and rest and listen? Deeply listen. Shema Israel. Listen. Listen to what the still small voice within is whispering in your ear as to what your next step on the journey might be. Can you be surrendered? Can you say, like the Jewish teacher of old, "Thy will, not my will, thy will be done." Yehiyu l'ratzon. May it be your will, Eternal One of all being, that I might be such a channel for your blessing, for your peace, for your shalom. 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 And from that space of profound restfulness, from that place of deep surrender, from our letting ourselves be as clear a channel as possible, may the words of Shalom, the energies of the chants, reverberate through us, to the entire tapestry of the universe that connects every dot, every being, everywhere. That this shalom, this wholeness, this inner harmony, this inner peace, this inner healing might touch, might meet, might find all those we know to be in need of healing on this Shabbat. That it might find those you have lovingly inscribed on our community's healing list. משברך אבותינו אברהם, יצחק ויעקב, משברך אמותינו, שרה, רבקה, לאה ורחל, הוא יברך וירפא את Craig Wilson. Danielle Clark. Hillary Wilson. Phyllis Levin, Mike Levin. Maxwell Bernard. David Mark. Richard Aharon Ben Chaim. Martine Yani. Marissa LeCabe. Pauline Morris, John Gorham, Donald Meadow, Haley Reagan, Harry Gorlick, Katie Margaret Bank, Dan Schilling, Susan Austin, Chris Werner Mochel, Simon Garcia, Jerry Pettitz, Cheryl Carr, Janie Patel, Michael Liskin, Carol Coparelli, Russell Kaufman, Nancy Chester, Howard Katz, Liz Spiegel, Emily Bradley, Jenny Leonard, Zoe Chaya Young, Abigail Levy, Ezra Thunman. And we name in our hearts the names of those we include in the circle of healing tonight. נמלא רחמים עליהם לחזקם ולרפאותם. רפואה שלמה, רפואת הנפש ורפואת הגוף. And we share with them a song on page 35 of your prayer book. It's called Waters of Healing.
May the waters of healing flow through
Amen. We have reached the concluding moments of our Shabbat service together. We are on page 13 in your prayer book, about to share in the Mourner's Kaddish. Before we do that, as always, I invite all of us to step once again, or dwell once again into the open heart at the core of our being, and to invite in the circle of memory the names, the faces, the light of those we remember on this Shabbat. Tonight we hold in the memorial circle those who have made their transition in recent days and weeks, for whom some of our members are holding Shiva or Shloshim. Francesca Tolchin, Kalish Leviel's dear friend. On this Shabbat, we also hold in the light of the circle of memory those who have made their transition in the past year, shared with those who are marking Shana. Emily Swartz, Dr. Carol Stanley, Robert White, David Hittmiller, Dr. Aggie Schuler, Dr. Dijo Schuler, Jerry Crouch, Fern Danker O'Connor, Gary Marmer, Lorna Lee, Sombang Sisamuth, Sari Lou Coden, Marco Antonio Florian Corona, Klaus Schuler, Bill Harris, Michael Ruff, Irvin Faludi, Rebecca Risman, Paul Ponton, Mark Montefusco, Mark Sinclair, Carol Cohen, Carl Robert Finkelstein, Judy Turin, Eva Buyadosh, Daryl Summers, Gloria Funston, Yitzchak Leib, Ben Bertha Ve'aron, Norman Lubitsch, Marcia Whelan, Jack Cohen, Jeffrey Hollingsworth. On this Shabbat, we also hold in the circle of memory those whose yahrzeit, the anniversary of their transition, happens at this time of the year. Anne Koloff Klein, Anne-Marie Balin, Aileen Mary Danker, Barry James Goldman, Harriet Oakley, Joanne Levine, Margaret Wilson Durham, Mary Bernard, Rose Turiel Sherman, Sheldon Klein, Shirley Osron Harris, Richard Gold, Eldon Olson. And on this Shabbat of Juneteenth, our new national holiday, we also hold in light of memory all Black lives taken by the horrors of slave trade, of hundreds of years of abject slavery. Through the struggle for emancipation, freedom, voting and civil rights, and in the ongoing devastating loss of life from police violence and systemic racism. We say Kaddish for them as well on this Shabbat. Please join me. יתגדל ויתקדש שמי רבה, בעלמא דברה חירותי וימליך מלכותי, בחייכון וביומכון, ובחיי דכל בית ישראל, בעגלה ובזמן קריב, ואמרו אמן. יהי שמי רבה מברך לעלם ולעלמי עלמיה. יתברך וישתבח ויתפאר ויתרומם ויתנשא. ויתהדר ויתהלה ויתהלל שמי דקודשה בריחו. לאלה מן כל ברכתה ושירתה. תושבחתה ונחמתה. האמירן בעלמא. ואמרו אמן. יהי שממה רבה מן שמיה. וחיים עלינו ועל כל ישראל. ואמרו אמן. עושה שלום במרומיו. הוא יעשה שלום. עלינו ועל כל ישראל. ועל כל יושבי תבל. ואמרו אמן. May the one who creates harmony above make peace for us, for all the household of Israel, and for all the peoples of the world. And let us say,
Amen.
Amen. I hope that you have nearby your Kiddush cup, together with your favorite wine. It is now time to pour a little bit of wine into your Kiddush cup. And as you do that, I just want to remind you that tomorrow we continue on our travels through the Guide of the Perplexed, the amazing book by Moses Maimonides, written 1,000 years ago, that is oh so relevant to this time and to our spiritual journey. It's at 10:30. If you receive our emails, you know there's Zoom link there. I'm sure you can also find it on our website. It will be the last session until mid-August, as I will take a few weeks off in July, and there are a couple of bar mitzvahs Saturday mornings also coming up. So we'll be celebrating, but in a different way. So please join us tomorrow before we take a little break through the first part of the summer. I'm going to ask you to unmute yourselves again and to join me for the blessing over wine. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, borei peri hagafen. Amen. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, asher קידשנו במצוותיו ורצה בנו בשבת קודשו באהבה וברצון הנחילנו זיכרון למעשה בראשית הוא יום תחילה למקרא קודש זכר לצפיית מצרים קיוונו בחרת אותנו קידשת מכל העמים בשבת קודשך באהבה ורצון הנחתנו ברוך אתה אדוני מקדש השבת. Chaim. Delicious. All right. Find a challah to cluster around. And say together with me, Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam hamotzi lechem min haaretz. Amen. Well, perfect. We are going to close our Shabbat together with one more song. It's one that is on our prayer book, but you really don't need the words because we all know the words. It's Yet If You Do on page 22, and the song is Hava Nagila.
Hava Nagila, Hava Nagila, Hava Nagila, vein ismecha. Hava Nagila, Hava Nagila, Hava Nagila, vein ismecha. Havana ranana, Havana ranana, Havana ranana, vein ismecha. Havana ranana, Havana ranana, Havana ranana, vein ismecha. Urachim, urachim, lesameach, urachim, lesameach, urachim, lesameach, urachim, lesameach, urachim, urachim, lesameach. Hava Nagila, Hava Nagila, Hava Nagila, vein ismecha. Hava Nagila, Hava Nagila, Hava Nagila, vein ismecha. Havana ranana, Havana ranana, Havana ranana, vein ismecha. Havana ranana, Havana ranana, Havana ranana, vein ismecha. Urachim, urachim, lesameach, urachim, lesameach, urachim, lesameach, urachim, lesameach, urachim, urachim, lesameach.
We're going to say goodbye to all our friends on Facebook. And for those of you who want to stick around for the Oneg, just stay on the Zoom call. And me and Shuket will be happy to chat. Shabbat Shalom to those on Facebook. We say Shabbat Shalom to you.